What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Today we are talking about Saltagreppo's tweet where he kind of makes a wish list of his nerfs and buffs he would like to make to Destiny 2 when the final shape releases. Now, after reading the nerfs and buffs myself, I was kind of taken back because you really can't tell if they're going to be good for the game until you can actually experience them. There has been a lot of times I've read like a twit or a twab. I would read a nerf and I'm just like, yo, this is trash, it's terrible. But when it releases in the game, it actually isn't that bad and it kind of feels better than before. Thinking about the purpose of his nerfs and buffs, which are trying to bring balance to the game and improve the PvE experience. I feel like PvE experiences are vastly subjective, and the way to improve his PvE experience may not align with mine or yours because we have fun in different ways, meaning that I have fun using the round robin. I don't think it should be nerfed, but he could think that it should be nerfed because it ruins the PvE experience, but I don't feel that way because I have a lot of fun. So you see what I mean? And then you could probably just not care because you don't use aggressive hand cannons anyway. So the PvE experience is pretty touchy and it's gonna take a lot more than a list of nerfs and buffs to actually bring balance and improve that area of the game. It does seem like with these nerfs and buffs, he's trying to encourage gameplay diversity or build variety. Basically, impact or shake the meta. In my own words, I'm not sure if he's trying to change the meta, but if he is trying to change the meta, I would love to talk about that because I don't believe nerfs and buffs are going to fix the problem people have with the meta and how stagnant it is. The reason why the meta is so stagnant is because of the identity of the meta. Now, what is the identity of the meta? It's surviving and doing damage. And that is going to be the meta until Destiny 2 is over. Because all of Destiny 2's endgame is demanding that you survive and do damage. That's all it requires you to do. You know, raids and dungeons also require you to use your brain so you can memorize the mechanics, but you can't build into that. What you can do is create builds that help you survive, and you can create builds that help your teammates survive. You can create builds or loadouts that allow your teammates to do more damage, or just be a glass cannon and do a lot of damage yourself. And that is why the builds that we have are always rising, because they're really great at surviving and doing damage. That has been the identity of the meta for years, years, even back into Destiny 1. If Bungie wants to improve build diversity, they have to stop coming up with these rules. They have to stop making these activities that require us to survive and do optimal damage. Because if you think about it, Grandmaster Nightfalls, Master Dungeons, Master Raids, you can even think about Pantheon now. There are rules that you have to follow, which are basically survive and do damage. Let me just give an example, like for Pantheon, because it's new, right? In Pantheon, you have to survive. Why do you have to survive? Because if you don't survive, you're losing res tokens, and that's not great. Also, when you're dead, you're ruining the flow of the encounter. Now, it's okay to mess up the flow once or twice, but when you do it 3 times, that's really detrimental to the flow of the encounter. To prevent yourself from dying, you're going to want to have a subclass or a build that increases or enhances your probability of surviving. Once you get the surviving down, once you get the mechanics down, now all you have to do is decent damage. Why do you want to do decent damage or optimal damage? Because if you don't beat the timer, you're not going to get the platinum reward. And we want to get the platinum reward all the time. Or we just want to complete it. So if you want to complete it, you got to do decent damage. So you have to look at your loadout. You have to look at your build so that you can output more damage. or optimal damage. When you want to do optimal damage, you want to use the weapons that give you the most damage, right? Like bait and switch as transit. If Bungie wants to shift the meta, they have to create activities that aren't demanding us to do damage and survive. But that is just the DNA of Destiny 2. Like, I don't know if Bungie is going to ever create an activity that doesn't require those two things. There is another way to shift the meta. That is to create loot that challenges the meta. Create perks that challenges the meta. That could be another option. I would actually encourage Bungie to make buckets where we have the surviving bucket, the damage bucket, and then whatever else you want to do, the niche bucket. And every once in a while, you're dumping fragments, perks, aspects, exotics into the damage and the healing surviving bucket so that you can keep those buckets fresh. If you go 2 or 3 seasons without touching the damaging bucket or touching the surviving bucket, then your game is going to stagnate. And I believe that's what's been happening, man. There hasn't been a lot of exotics thrown out to us that improve our survivability. Like, that is why we're using such a old warlock build in the Phoenix Protocol, man. There's just nothing better. We do have a kit, you know, the solar kit. That's really good. Man, cracked for survivability. Void is really good at survivability. Strand is as well. But then we have Stasis and Arc. In the final shape, I would love to see, I know we're not going to get it, but I would love to see, I guess, in the Prismatic subclass, and also I believe Solar is going to be touched, maybe just giving us more ways to survive, giving us more ways to do more damage, and also giving us more ways to do both, right? Give us aspects, give us fragments, give us exotics that allow that so that we can make more builds for the meta instead of continuously making niche builds. We don't need niche builds. We need builds that help us beat the game. And we need loot that helps us beat the game. And I know Bungie knows this because they're making Edge Transit with bait and switch. And they're making all of these weapons with bait and switch because they know that bait and switch is good for DPS. They know that we're not using bipod because it doesn't do enough damage. So what they do, buff it. And now bipod is not a bad idea to bring into raids. If we want to see a shift in the meta for the final shape, we have to see new exotics. We have to see new loot that challenges the meta. And we may even see it. I know they're creating a new weapon that allows us to heal teammates. I don't know how effective that's going to be to shift the meta. I really think what they need to do is to buff fragments that are based around survivability or add in fragments that give us more survivability. They also need to introduce exotics. Maybe they do this with the class item. They give us exotics that allow us to have, you know, more damage to our super, maybe a Star Eater's exotic perk on a class item. So we can also, as warlocks, have some damaging super or subclasses. So it's a lot that Bungie can do, but I don't know how heavily it relies on nerfs and buffs. I believe it heavily relies on creativity and also feeding the meta when it comes to our builds, instead of fighting against the meta and creating all of these niche builds and niche loadouts and etc. Stop it. We need more meta changing builds and loot. So let me know down in the comments how you feel about the meta and how we can shift it. I do not believe it's going to come from nerfs and buffs because nerfs and buffs are supposed to give us balance. And I believe loot is supposed to shift the meta. That's my opinion. Let me know if you all agree. I'll see you with the next one, baby. Peace and one love.